So for the first time since 2019, the Sixers are facing the Nets in the playoffs. And unlike a rivalry with Jared Dudley, which the Sixers had in the previous postseason, there was supposed to be a great rivalry between Ben Simmons and the Sixers. Unfortunately, Ben decided not to join the party and will be missing the playoffs with a back injury or knee injury. I'm not really sure which one it is. And I don't think the Nets really know either. Hey, at least Ben Simmons is more consistent than the Phillies are. You're watching Sports Talk Philadelphia. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. This is the first time that I've been on in 3 weeks, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Mike, who isn't here today, but he did a great job filling in. I am joined by my usual panel, Sans Mike with Libby Gillen to my left. Libby, how are you?
I am good. The Sixers are doing good, so I am good.
Sixers are doing good. Shane, unfortunately, no Flyers talking. The Phillies aren't doing much better, but how are you doing besides that?
No, but I'm still doing good, so there's that.
That is a very positive tone from Shane because, yeah, the Phillies, they're off to a little bit of a weird start. They're currently 8-11 right now. Their season has been bizarre. They beat the Reds 14-3 in one game, but that was after losing a game 13-0. They then faced the White Sox, won the first game of a doubleheader 7-4, and then nearly got no hit in the second game. Brandon Marsh got the only hit in a 3-0 loss, and then they beat the White Sox in their last game 5-2. Shane, what can I make of this season? Because right now it is very frustrating to watch.
I mean, the thing is, this team ranks first to third in almost every offensive stat in the league so far. Their problem is that they have trouble with getting the big hits with runners in scoring position. A lot of these hits that they're getting, the reason why they rank so high up in all the offensive categories and why they're so good at that is because they're all mainly singles. And if they do get a double, it's either a leadoff double or it's not going to get down and far enough into the gap and roll all the way to the wall for a runner to score from first all the way to home, like someone like Trey Turner or Alec Boehm or Brandon Marsh. And I feel also this is a thing with them for the past couple of years. They score about 5 to 6 plus runs one game, and then the next game they either get shut out, almost get no hit like last night, or score at least 2 runs, and that's a problem.
Yeah, definitely not scoring with runners in scoring position has been a big problem for the Phillies. They're also not hitting a lot of home runs, Libby, and you would expect a guy like Trey Turner, the way he performed in the World Baseball Classic, to at least have 1 through 20 games. That's just not the case right now.
Yeah, and he finally got his first one, but I don't know whether to attribute it to he's just not comfortable in Philly yet or with the team. I really don't know, but like you said, he played really well in the World Baseball Classic, so what's the disconnect there? And he was kind of your guy that you brought in. So I think the Phillies are scrambling a little bit. They're hitting well, there's people stepping up, but it's still just a little bit frustrating to see them struggling so much through this part of the season.
Yeah, we also have Mr. Double and Nick Castellanos, so that is not the guy that the Phillies thought they were bringing in. They thought they were getting a home run hitter. It is good to see Nick being a more consistent hitter, but he's just not bringing the power that the Phillies need without Bryce Harper. The one guy that is being a very, very consistent player, although, again, no a lot of home runs, but he's playing very well, is Bryson Stott. Started out the year with a 17-game hit streak, which is the Phillies franchise record now. Unfortunately, he didn't get a hit in yesterday's loss to the White Sox, but then again, pretty much nobody did except for Brandon Marsh. At this point in the season, he has a .365 batting average with 1 home run and 7 RBIs. All very, very good stats, Libby, for a guy that really struggled out of the gate last year.
Yeah, really great performance, and I think he's kind of filling in that gap that Harper isn't anymore. And, we're hoping that he comes back soon, but you had to have a guy fill his shoes, and that's what he's doing. So at least there's somebody that's being consistent because nobody else is.
Yeah, and definitely when it came to Stott at the beginning of last year, was not getting consistent playing time. Joe Girardi gets fired. Rob Thompson comes in. He then makes Stott the everyday second baseman. Didi Gregorius gets traded. Stott's just improved since then. And Shane, to me, this might be a little bit of an overreaction for a guy this young. He reminds me a lot of a Larry Boa type player with a little bit more power.
No, yeah, and I mean, it's the fact that I mean, last year, like you said, he wasn't playing as much under Joe Girardi, and the fact that after he was fired and Ron Thompson got hired, he started playing every day, and I feel like that can help a player, especially with Bryson Stott. I mean, last year was his rookie year. Either you're going to get off to a good start or you're not your rookie year. But especially in the playoffs, he was really good in the playoffs for this team, and that carried over into the season so far in the first month of the season. And just the way he's hitting the ball, all the extra base hits he's got and everything, he looks really good so far.
Yeah, he's definitely been the Phillies' best player by far, most consistent player, 100%. And when you look at the standings, they need a consistent guy like that because right now they are still struggling. They finally won another series against the White Sox, but they're still only 8-11. They're still behind the Marlins, who are losing a lot more games than they were at the beginning of the season. The Marlins still have a winning percentage over 500 at 10-9. The Braves are probably the hottest team in the entire National League with a 14-4 record. And then you got the Mets ahead of them still. And the worst part is the Phillies are only 2 games in front of the Nationals. So, Shane, when you look at the standings, yes, it's early. Yes, the Phillies are playing a little bit better than the start they got off to, but it's still not looking that good for them early on.
No, it's not. And the problem is with other people saying it's still April, it is too early. It's not like last year. The National League in general is pretty good this year. You have the Cubs who are playing good. You have the Pirates who are playing good. Milwaukee's in first place in their division so far. No one expected that with the way they played last year. And you have the Marlins are playing good as well. And it's just, you're not going to be able to sneak into the wild card spot again like you did last year. Yes, obviously they played very well last year after they fired Joe Girardi. But they need to start picking it up.
Yeah, so if they want to make that wild card spot, they're going to have to pass the Mets, it seems like, because the Cubs are playing very well. That's not a team that was mentioned, but obviously the Brewers are. The Cardinals gotten off to a slow start, but I expect them to get better. So, Libby, this is a very competitive National League at this point in the season. It's going to be hard for the Phillies to make the playoffs again with the way that they're playing right now.
Right now, yeah, it seems that way. And you don't want to become completely obsessed with standings right now. It's important all the time, but they need to focus on getting their pitchers together with the new pitch clock and everything, if that's the issue. Being consistent in more ways than one, getting Bryce Harper back, and just staying afloat until they can get their key players back. They're going to be okay, I think. It's hard to look at it that way right now, but if they can just stay in it, they can start winning games and kind of catch up. You just don't want to fall too far behind at this point.
Yeah, I think that is a really important point, that it's still early in the season. This win against a very beat-up White Sox team is very good, although, again, almost getting no hit, not great. But they did win the series, which is a positive. The pitching, though, still has not looked good at all. They still only have a combined record of 5-8. Only one guy has gone through a full 7 innings, and that was Bailey Falter in yesterday's loss. So although he pitched well finally, they still couldn't get any run support for him. Bailey Falter is also the only pitcher on the rotation not to get a win. Taijuan Walker pitched well in the last game of the White Sox series, but still only got through 6 1/3 inning. So, Shane, when you see all of this happening, the rotation just needs to be better, and especially from your top guys in Wheeler and Nola.
Yes, it does, and especially the last game that Nola pitched against the Reds. I mean, yeah, they scored 9 runs for him. He only gave up 2, I think it was, but he didn't look particularly well in that game as well. His velocity was dropping off. He was going way outside of the zone and everything, especially, and that happened with Wheeler yesterday as well. His fastball was dropping down to 95. He usually throws at 97, 98, and that's something that they need to start fixing and figure out what is happening.
Yeah, and when you see the bottom part of this rotation, it also has struggled a lot, although it's looking a little bit better. The one guy that's not on the rotation yet is Ranger Suarez. He should be back in another week or two, which begs the question, Libby, which pitcher do you get rid of between Strom and Falter? Because Strom's pitched so well for them.
He has. He got pulled in the 3rd inning the other day against the Reds with a thumb injury. He cut his thumb or something, and so he got taken out. You just can't have guys not pitch more than 3 innings. You know, it's kind of a race between who can improve the fastest before he gets back. I really don't know what you do, but you got to figure out something, because Falter, Nola, and Wheeler all have ERAs of 4.5 or higher. You can't do that in the MLB, and it puts so much stress on the rest of the team and your hitters if they're, behind however many runs in the second inning, okay, now we have to hit. It's just too much to put on a team so early. And this early in the season, it's what's really causing them to fall back and not be in the position that they were last year.
Yeah, you mentioned how high the ERAs are of Nola, Wheeler, and Falter. Taijuan Walker finally got his ERA under 4, but it's still 3.80, which is not a good ERA. So hopefully the rotation can wake up a little bit, get adjusted to the pitch clock, and improve throughout the season, because right now it has just been a very weak part of the Phillies team. One team that is not looking very weak right now is the Philadelphia 76ers. They're off to a hot start in the playoffs, up 2-0 on the Nets. Both wins were double-digit, pretty much blowouts, at least game one was. 121-101 thumping of the Nets. And the second game, much more low scoring. They still won 96-84, so still a double-digit win. When you look at how well that Embiid, Maxey, and Harris have played, they've all scored double-digit points in both games, with Embiid averaging 23 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. Libby, it's very good to see that these guys are off to this good of a start.
Yes, these are your guys that have to perform, and they did. And I loved the way that they controlled the tempo. In the first game, there was never a doubt. That was the Sixers team we need to see for the rest of this playoffs. In the second game, the Nets came out and they had a game plan. They doubled Embiid. They sped up the pace to an enormous amount where the Sixers got really uncomfortable. And so the Sixers, out of halftime, made an adjustment and they were okay. But you've got to think in these next couple of games that the Nets are going to come back with more game plans, and there's going to be a lot more adjustments that have to happen. And when Embiid shuts down, the fact that Maxey picked it up was really incredible to see. So hopefully he can keep doing that. John Calipari from Kentucky was in the stands watching him the other day, and hopefully that gave him the spark that he needed to really excel in these next few games, hopefully for them to get the sweep.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that without Maxey, the Sixers would not have won Game 2, especially because Harden really fell off a cliff, only scored 8 points, really just did not shoot the ball well. And the fact that he is the most beat-up player for the Sixers right now with his Achilles injury, I am just a little bit concerned that if Harden continues to struggle and the Nets keep doubling Embiid, or especially when you go into future rounds with guys that are a little bit better than the Nets, that it will be very easy to shut down this offense.
Absolutely. That was what was most concerning for me watching Game 2, was that with the pace and the double teaming, Embiid got really frustrated, and you could really see it. So Maxey made some really key shots, and if he doesn't make those shots, we probably don't win. So it's going to, every other team in the league saw how the Sixers handled that, but they saw how to beat them. So they've really got to stay on top of it, and Embiid's going to have to figure out how to overcome the double team or who's got to step in. They really have some work to do in the next day to figure that out going forward.
Yeah, even with double teaming Embiid, he's still averaging 23 points per game again, which is just amazing that he's able to score at that pace with all the double teams and defensives that he's seen. The other guy that's really stepped up, and it's not really being talked about a lot, is Paul Reed off the bench. The Sixers have not really had consistency at backup center in the postseason. Game 1, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. Game 2, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 1 block. The interesting thing is that Doc Rivers said that when it came to the rotation, he didn't really put Paul Reed in because James Harden said he'd be more comfortable with Montrezl Harrell. That's a weird thing for a coach to be saying at this point in the season.
It is a weird thing to say, and it's a weird thing for James Harden to be saying at this point because he's not your leader. I mean, if Maxey would have said that, okay. It's not really James Harden's decision. It's Doc's decision, and I love what he did. Paul Reed has been playing incredibly well. He's reliable off the bench, and if you're going to go far in these playoffs, you have to have that. So I like what they're doing so far. I love the way he's playing, and Montrezl Harrell has not showed anything, so I'm happy with it, and sorry, James Harden.
Yeah, it's also the part that concerns me as well is the fact that you could have given Paul Reed meaningful minutes in the regular season to get him ready for the postseason. Because again, the Nets, they're a very solid team considering everything that's happened to them this year with the Ben Simmons debacle, the fact that you had to trade your 2 top players in Durant and Kyrie in the middle of the season, and the fact they're still in the playoffs is just a testament to their entire organization. But they're not as good as the Sixers are. And I feel like that Paul Reed's finally getting good minutes against the playoff team, which is good. But I wish that he would have had that time in the regular season to get ready for this.
Yeah, Absolutely. And, we talk about it all the time that in the playoffs, more people are going to step up. And maybe Paul Reed's your guy that is going to step up. I love that they're playing him versus the 6th seed. And, if he continues to improve and play the way that he's playing, maybe when we get to the Celtics series, that's how it's looking, then he's getting more minutes and you kind of extend that into next year. It's frustrating that he didn't play more, but he's still stepping up. He knows his role. He's comfortable in it, and he's playing well.
Yeah, so when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference playoffs, outside the Sixers, who have a very demanding lead, the Celtics also have a very dominant lead over their series. They're up on the Hawks 2-0. The Knicks and Cavs, that one I believe will probably go to 7 games the way that it's looking right now. And the Heat beating Bucks, that is very shocking, although I do think that the Bucks will finish this series in either 5 or 6 games. But it is interesting to see that both the Sixers and the Celtics are the 2 teams off to the hottest start so far.
And that's what I kind of predicted last week, that those are the 2 teams. That series is going to give me a heart attack if it happens. It's going to be, they're both really, really great basketball teams at the end of the day. We love watching good basketball, so it's going to be fun to watch. And, the Celtics are obviously playing really well. The Bucks was surprising to me as well, Aidan, and I think they'll still finish it out, but the Heat's, showing some purpose. So we'll see how the rest of this week goes. It'll be a fun first round to see the results.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that the Sixers and Celtics game, the way that those teams have always played against each other in the playoffs, it always feels like it goes down to 6 or 7 games. Do you think that the Sixers match up well if the series goes that late, if they don't get a demanding lead early in that series?
I think it's going to be mental because there's so much turmoil between those 2 teams. So how does Embiid handle it, most importantly, because in Game 2 against the Nets, he was getting aggravated. Yeah. So he's got to stay okay. He's got to keep it calm. Doc has got to keep everybody level-headed and just play basketball. Play their game, keep the pace the way that they want it and stay in control of the game, and they'll be just fine. You got to have your shooters shooting well. Maxi's got to play well. But I think they could pull it out. It is just going to be mental and, staying in it until those last games because it's going to be a tough series. Yeah,
before we can focus fully our attention onto the next round of the playoffs, that we still need to finish off this series. The Sixers are, again, up 2-0. They can win in 4 games at this point. It would be their first sweep in the playoffs since 1991, which I did not know before looking this stat up, which is just amazing that it's been that long that they have swept the playoff series, considering how often they've been in the playoffs in the last 5 years.
It's true. I mean, they've struggled a little bit in the playoffs. We've talked about that a lot, and it seems like they're really getting their footing under them, and they have a lot of players that know what they're doing now and have playoff experience. So it would be really cool if they could sweep. At this point, I just want them to win the series. I don't care how they do it. Maybe don't take it to 7 games, but I'm feeling pretty confident in the way that they're playing. But the Nets are going to bring out all the stops. They're going to have a game plan, and the Sixers are just going to have to adjust like they did in Game 2, and I think they'll get the win.
Yeah, so with the Sixers having the domination that they've had so far, what do you want to see from the Sixers in these next couple of games against the Nets?
I want to see Maxey continuing to have the confidence that he has. I want to see Embiid work through getting double teamed because people are going to double team him every single game from now on. So who are the people you can rely on? I want to see James Harden maybe not have an ego and play well and sit when he needs to sit, because if he's injured, he doesn't really have a point to be out there. He's a good player. He's playing pretty well, but maybe we need him more at the end of the Celtics series than right now against the Nets. So know your place, take your time, and just for them to be patient and keep a level head, but they're looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, not wanting James Harden to have an ego, I think that's what they call wishful thinking. But, I mean, again, the Sixers are playing very well. The fact that Paul Reed is finally able to play with Harden without Harden publicly complaining is a very good sign for the Sixers. And I want to see more out of their bench as well. But up until that we see that, it is very good to see where the Sixers are at. I wasn't planning on doing a segment about the Eagles this week until the draft next week, except there was some pretty big news from a certain franchise quarterback. Jalen Hurts signed a 5-year, $255 million contract with $179 million guaranteed, which makes him the highest paid player in NFL history in terms of average value for the contract. Libby, what is your first reaction to this signing?
Good job, Eagles. You see what's happening with Lamar Jackson, and it's happened with plenty of quarterbacks over the years, that it seems like their team doesn't value them. They're kind of like playing back and forth. We're not really sure if we want to pay you. And the Eagles said, no, this is our guy. We're going to pay him. Even if he's the most paid person in the NFL, I mean, I'm glad you have the money to do that. And that's your guy. And I love that. He's a fantastic quarterback. He's a great leader, a great guy, and I love that he's the face of this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Lamar Jackson. This is a Philadelphia talk show for sports, although there is a guy in Cincinnati right now, and Joe Burrow, that's probably looking at this contract asking for money as well. Same with Justin Herbert for Los Angeles. So when you see what Hurts has done through this process, really just going through his agent, not making a big deal about it, I think that this could be the way that quarterbacks get paid in the NFL from now on.
Oh, I think so too. This was so seamless. There's no drama, and he's not a drama kind of guy. But when you look at Lamar, there's a lot of complaining on both sides. The Aaron Rodgers situation is a disaster. That's just not what you want for your franchise, for your team, that the guys that are under him, you want to start practicing now. It's your off season. Know what the plan is, because the Jets right now and the Packers, who's their quarterback? No idea. That's not what you want going into a season. So I really like what the Eagles are doing, and they're smart people, and it's a smart franchise, and I think they're going to have another really good year.
Yeah, I think when you hear the most about Jalen Hurts is his leadership on and off the field. This just feels like an extension of that, and another reason why fans should feel so confident about Hurts as your quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, above his performance as a mobile quarterback, that's kind of what the league is going into. He's a stand-up guy, and he, loves the fans, loves Philly, and there's just not much more you can ask for in a person and in a quarterback to lead your team and lead your franchise.
Yeah, so this is very good news for the Eagles as they head towards the draft. They no longer have to worry about finding a quarterback really at all because they have Mariota as your backup. But the fact that you can lock down your franchise quarterback this early in his career, this early in the offseason too, and again with no drama, it's just been very nice. And as Libby mentioned, with some of the other organizations in the NFL that have been a mess this offseason, it's nice feeling that the Eagles have something in place, not just from last year's Super Bowl run, but for the future as well. We're now going to jump into the Fast Five. We're going to start with our always favorite segment, Talking Baseball with Shane Nolan.
Yeah, and the MLB is trying out new rules once again in the Atlantic League. Nothing new there. A designated pinch runner in which if, say, something like Kyle Schwarber gets on base, then instead of when you put in a pinch runner, instead of taking him out of the game, he will be able to go back into the game the next inning. And also what are people calling the double hook DH. And if your starting pitcher doesn't go 5+ innings, you have to take out your DH and the pitcher has to bat again, like it used to be.
Yeah, that second rule to me is the weirder one. And I don't know exactly how that will be implemented in Major League Baseball. But again, the Atlantic League has been the test ground for all these new rules. So would you be surprised if this is implemented at some point in Major League Baseball?
I probably wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think it's going to happen necessarily. I mean, that second rule is a little bit ridiculous because what's the point of the DH? What was the point of bringing the DH into the National League then if you're just going to make that a rule 2 seasons later?
Yeah, and I do like the pinch running rule. I think that does make a little bit of sense. It will be, like I said, interesting to see how far this rule goes because what usually happens is the rule starts out in the Atlantic League, goes to AAA, and then goes to Major League Baseball. So we'll see what happens with that one. Shane, I'm going to stick with you. The Stanley Cup playoffs started. What was your biggest takeaway so far from the first games?
They are very unpredictable, especially out in the Western Conference right now with all road teams winning the games. You have the Seattle Kraken, their second season, made the playoffs for the first time, and beat the defending Stanley Cup champions, and the Los Angeles Kings holding off Connor McDavid off the score sheet as well.
Yeah, I also saw that the Toronto Maple Leafs got pretty much blown out in their game. They're a franchise that has struggled to win a playoff series. I wouldn't be surprised if they blow up the franchise if they don't make it out of the first round in this.
Yeah, I don't think they'll blow up the franchise, but they might start trading off some pieces. If they don't, I mean, the Lightning are a very good team still. So, I mean, it's not, I mean, the Leafs were projected to win the series coming into the season.
Yeah, we're going to go back to baseball with Libby, who is our designated Pirates fan, and they're off to a very good start. They're 11-7 right now. They're beating the Rockies badly at this point. Libby, do you think that this is the most surprising team in baseball right now?
Yes, I do. The Pirates have been so bad for so long, and I'm thrilled that they're playing as well as they are. They're 11-7. There's not a lot of teams that are over 10 wins, so it's really great to see. They've been rebuilding for so many years, and they're finally where they need to be. I think the it factor is Andrew McCutchen coming home. The fans are so excited. This team has so much energy. He's having the time of his life in Pittsburgh right now, and it just adds a lot. So you've got Brian Reynolds batting .319. McCutchen has a .418 on-base percentage, and it's just the most complete team that we've seen in a while, so go Pirates.
Yeah, these veterans definitely stepping up for the Pirates. Libby, I'm going to go back to you. We talked a lot about the Eastern Conference in the Sixers segment, the Western Conference. It's been a little bit of a shakeup. What is your biggest takeaway so far?
Yeah, it's kind of been a lot. My pick in the Western Conference is the Suns. I really like the way that they're playing, and they're not winning their series right now, but I still like them coming out of the Western Conference. I think they're the strongest. They have really good stars. It's going to be kind of a toss-up. There's a lot of talent there. You know, of course, my focus has been more on our side with the Sixers, but it'll be an interesting end of this series and kind of going in the next series, see who really steps up.
Yeah, Russ really stepped up in Game 1 with his defense, which I was not expecting at all. So very good to see a very competitive playoff in both the East and Western playoffs. We're going to close with a little bit of a lighthearted segment. So I didn't know this, but the last time the Phillies played the White Sox was in 2019, and a very bizarre game happened at that point. The game went into the 14th inning, I believe, and Roman Quinn, who was then the Phillies center fielder, was on the mound. This is the play here. So Jose Abreu is at second. The ball is hit by Brian McCann, and the guy that throws out Abreu at home plate, Vince Velasquez, who went in to be a pinch hitter and then outfielder. Yeah, he was the Phillies pitcher who struggled a lot. He then was in the 14th inning as a defender and threw out a runner, which I did not know that was the last time that the White Sox played the Phillies. By the way, only one of those guys that was part of that play is still on their current team, and that's JT Realmuto. Jose is now on the Astros. Velasquez went to the White Sox last year and really, really struggled, which not surprising if you're a Phillies fan and paid attention all in 2017 to 2021, which I don't know why you would pay that much attention unless you're a diehard fan. So you might not have known that. And James McCann is also not on the White Sox anymore, and Roman Quinn is gone as well. So just a nice, surprising play. That wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check us out on social media at Twitter and Instagram at SportsTalk LTV. We will be updating you about the Sixers playoff run, maybe the Eagles or the Phillies season if they do better, and definitely the Eagles draft. Thanks so much for watching, and tune in next week.